We're live again. Welcome to the Amamudo Discovery. As you can see, I've been rushing to come in, but I got a great topic for today. And it's a very, very important topic if you consider change and your adaptability quotient, something important for you personally, something important for you professionally, and something you believe that you can improve and grow. I myself have had to deal with a lot of change in my life, and that's why I make this podcast to share with you, my audience, what I have learned about change and to learn from my guests about the changes they've been through and what we can learn from them. Today's episode: how to overcome shame and guilt. Very tough cookie, I would say, because I always spend some time preparing for these episodes, and I really had a lot of trouble preparing for this one. Um, yeah, why are we ashamed of certain things? And why do we feel guilty about certain things? There is a difference between them. You can listen to Brene Brown. She has an amazing talk about it. That's already out there. I'm not going to talk about those things. I'm going to talk from my experience about the things that helped me overcome whatever I was guilty of, for what I felt guilty for. And a couple of layers deeper, we find the things that we're ashamed of. It could be different for everybody. Like, I myself had a lot of trouble accepting love. Didn't know how that came to be, but it was a big block for me in my personal life and relationships. As an entrepreneur, accepting help, reaching out to people, sharing projects, it all had to do with feeling vulnerable and thinking that you're good enough, that you deserve all these things. What's a good reality check for that is breaking your neck. Then you need help most of the time, a lot of the time. For a long period in my life, I needed help and care around the clock, and that stuff really shook the core of my system, in the sense that you got to be honest with yourself. You cannot walk away from the things that you're ashamed of anymore. And you also lose a lot of things that you would usually be ashamed of, and you'll be able to hide it. So the topic of today, overcoming these things, it really digs deep. That's why when I was preparing for the episode, I broke it down into a couple of pieces. And first off is being radically honest with yourself. Start there. It requires a great insight to know what are the lies that you are telling yourself. If I dig deep, I think one of the biggest lies I tell myself is that I am strong. Then the question comes, why are you telling yourself this lie? And for me, it comes from the fear of being weak, but also a layer of shame that is accompanied with associating vulnerability with weakness. Like if you say, "Ow, you're a quitter, you're throwing in the towel," that's not the type of person you want to be. That's not the type of person that you are. So just don't even mention it. So instead of addressing that layer of fear inside of me, I'd rather tell myself and a whole bunch of other people who believe it, they eat it like cake, that I'm a strong person. And I'm not talking about just the past. Still today, uh, my wheelchair sitting here next to me, people might get impressed by my appearance or how I my attitude towards life. And that's why this episode is such a tough cookie for me, because still today I think it remains the deepest layer of a lie that I can tell myself is that I am strong, I do not need help. Because accepting help, or like being afraid of that I am weak beyond recovery, weak beyond getting stronger, is just scary. And depending on other people is something that frightens me. I'm going to skip the whole Freudian how that came to be episode, but I started off with being radically honest with yourself. My comfort zone holds me back, like yours is holding you back, probably. And you want to step out of that comfort zone, but you got to be willing to step into that pain. And that pain, for me, was what I just described you. So, beyond having the great insight, being able to self-reflect completely naked, like look in the mirror and be like, okay, buddy, this is where it hurts. Then what? That's the second part. That's really also something that is hard to share. And I've brought up the monkeys a couple of times before. I'm going to bring out Brave Freddy again. This guy right here, he's the manifestation of my bravery. It's a happy, happy monkey with a banana and a peace sign. All jokes aside, all of us have memories of hearing our inner hero standing up for something we believe is injustice or unfair, and really not folding to that fear, reaching out, opening up. I guess in my example, that really has to do with all the efforts I've put into connecting my family with each other. We've been through horrendous things, from my parents going to jail, my sister spending her 9 months in the womb while my mom is in jail. There's a lot of trauma in our family, and my dad suffering from PTSD most of my youth. And I could have walked away from all that because it's painful as fuck. But my inner hero always made me rise to the occasion and be like, nah, this is something we can fix, we can talk about. And if my parents aren't capable, they are ashamed. That's the second part of it that we're going to get to in the podcast. But I am going to step into the ring here and say to everybody, hey, I'm not strong enough to do this by myself. I need you with it. And I care about you and I love about you and I need you with it. That's those memories, those instances of you knowing that you have bravery inside you, your inner hero, my little monkey there. That's what you can use to empower yourself to overcome shame and guilt. So, guilt is something that has to do with things we do. And that's what Brene Brown explains really nicely. Guilt is something that's outside of you, that's something that's happening in the world. Shame is something that's inside of you. So you think you are weak. You didn't do something weak, but you are weak. Guilt is very easily, not easily, it still requires effort, but it's of a different order of magnitude to overcome guilt, because these are things you can apologize for. Shame is something that you are dealing with yourself internally. So finding out how these things were conceived, that's the work of a therapist. Me, myself, as a coach, I am honored to help my clients shift dogmas and transition out of these things. And that's what this episode is about. If you feel guilty about something, You can confess. We're not in church nor in trial, but you can walk up to whatever person or situation, apologize, reflect, learn. When you're ashamed of something, the something is usually yourself. You're ashamed of yourself, that you are not smart enough, pretty enough, fit enough, young enough, not walking enough, you have glasses too much, all these things that you think that you are and they impact you as an individual. They hurt as hell. And they are also the things that lead to depression, addiction, take it up a couple of notches, and then you end up at suicide. They're the things that people think they cannot separate themselves from. So they feel stuck with it until the end of time, and it's super sad. What I was explaining to you about using that inner hero, that brave voice to overcome this shame, that's something that I definitely needed to do with my wheelchair situation, breaking my neck. Me, a guy who considers himself strong, to step away from the fact that he might be weak, gets put into a physical situation that everybody around him sees that he's weak. Like, if I'm like a turtle, if you flip me on my back, I'm done. I cannot get up. I cannot protect myself. So all the years that I spent in the gym kickboxing and then perfecting my right uppercut don't matter anymore. And then the shame complex basically was knocking on my door every day. I remember a great couple of months waking up every morning next to my wheelchair and just rolling over. I did not want to see that thing because it was showing me that my will was not big enough to show that I am not weak. It's confronting me with weakness. And using that brave voice, your inner hero that you have seen stand up and overcome this shame of being weak, being not strong enough. Being able to use that voice to shift that in yourself and live a shame-free life. How wonderful would that be? How do you do that? How do you do that? It's a really tough question, and it's a really tough process, but I really feel honored that I can help people do that. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month. That's why I'm sharing this content with you. It's the third part of developing your own energy management compass. And this tool, if you've listened to the past two previous podcasts, it exists out of knowing what activities give you energy and knowing when to reload yourself, the 30% rule. The second part of it was loving yourself unconditionally, knowing your own internal language of love, and also recognizing the gremlin message. That gremlin message, the core of that gremlin message, it's that shame. That's the swamp bottom. And here today we're talking about overcoming shame and guilt. The guilt part requires the what's it called? Humbleness of admitting a mistake, something you did. The shame part is about who you are. And knowing who you are, admitting to yourself who you are, you can spend a couple of lifetimes on it. But I'm here to help you save some time, save some, how do you say it, bruises, because I've had to gather many to share this with you. It really has to do with imagination, something that I use a lot in setting people free and myself, is whatever you feel ashamed of, okay? What would a life living free of that shame look and feel like? So for me, if I still have to do this, don't get me wrong, right? This is not something you do once and then it's done. It's an ongoing process. What would a life, what would living shame free look like, feel like? So, me, if I am not afraid of being vulnerable or weak, what will my life look like? Oh, wow. That's a crazy exercise. Yeah. If you're not strong, then you got to be smart. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. And then I would surround myself with a whole bunch of strong people because then I would know for sure that I'm golden, right? Instead of finding people to help to appear strong. See the shift there? The way I was orchestrating my life to be a helping hand to so many people, whether it was friends, girlfriends, business partner. I was the giver, not the receiver. That was super difficult for me. So I was afraid of that fact. I was ashamed of it. I would be weak. If I'm not afraid of that, if I do not have that shame with me, if I do not even consider it, my life would look like being surrounded by a whole bunch of people who are wide shoulders, they carry a lot of load, and I don't want to hang on them, but I would feel safe. So that's another big difference in imagining what that would feel like. It has to do with, oh, okay, first of all, the people I surround myself changes. And second of all, I would not be in constant distress, worried about who notices that I'm weak or not. I would just feel safe. And it's all good. This little imagination exercise, you can run it in every aspect of your life. What would I look like in a relationship if I was not ashamed of being weak? Well, first of all, wow, I would allow myself to receive care and love from a woman or a man in your case. Doesn't matter, but the fact that you're willing to open up your vulnerability, it allows somebody else to care for you. And that, what does that feel like? Wow, that feels pretty comfortable and so warm. Feels caring and like how happy a kid is when you grab them and give them a good hug. They're just very able to accept that. And that's something that I shut down for myself for a very, very long time. Just to feel that super pure emotion of receiving this connection, you know? I hope you know. If you don't know, you can try it out. Feel welcome because this is the experiment. Look at it as an experiment. So this shame thing, it's something that, like, if you talk about it with people, either because it's painful, they look past it, they don't even want to stop there, ignoring it, evading it, just not wanting to go there is a very common behavior. It feels like opening Pandora's box. Like, okay, you open it and then you're going to get sucked in and there's like no coming back from it. Don't worry. You've survived whatever it is that installed that fear in you and made you ashamed of certain things. You've already done it. The worst is over. It's just that you're carrying it along with yourself that is making it still hard right now. And trust me when I say 100%, I know you are brave. You're way braver than you would ever imagine. You've inspired more people than you've ever imagined. And you will inspire many more by being willing to step into that ring that is just between you and yourself. There's nobody else there. Using this first imagination exercise, the second one is very pragmatic. It's super pragmatic. It is about knowing the weight of your intrinsic values. What are your values? What do you care about? What is really important for you? Okay, you got your little list. You care about your freedom. You care about your ability to be able to express yourself. You care about, and this is all for me. I don't know what you care about. I care about not being too rigid with my planning. I like to not have rules, because if there are rules, I like to break them. Okay, all these things I care about. And then if I reflect on that list, I also got to write down how satisfied am I with how much these things are really happening in my life. You compare the how important that is on a scale of 1 to 10 to yourself, or you can rank them. And then next to it, you write down how satisfied you are with how much of that is happening in your life. You might see some gaps, you might see some differences, and you discover some parts where you are stepping away from yourself because following your values would require you to show your cards, show what you really care about, to tell other people who you are and what might hurt you. So, hey, you're vulnerable. And what might make you happy. Like, hey, I'm a person too, I have feelings. You got to realize these podcast series about the energy management compass that I'm doing during Mental Health Awareness Month, they're part of a curriculum. It's something that I offer offline, and I'm building on the content to offer it online as well. And this is not something you feel free to. These are the exercises. You can do them by yourself, write it out, and do the work, because it's the work that you're going to do. Usually, I would facilitate this in a group environment. People would share, and we would achieve breakthroughs with people, bond over it, and hold each other accountable to repeat this exercise. Because you might listen to me on this podcast and be like, okay, that's nice. Thinking about it, ooh, that's kind of scary. Let's not listen to this guy anymore. Well, if you're in a group of people and you gotta like spit it out, and people digest it, and then next week you gotta share another thing and another step that you did. You step into that ring and you commit to a team of people doing it together. So don't feel bad about yourself. You're like, whoa, this is tough, man. I cannot do this. But I'm just sharing with you what took me about 33 years to realize. And I know it's not a long time, but I've got a lot of mileage on me. And right now I've come so far. I have to call it out. If I see somebody lying to themselves, I have to call it out. I don't care about you lying to me, but be honest with yourself. And if you're able to be honest with yourself, then you're living a life that's free of shame, because you know you're good. You know you're okay. You know you deserve all the love and care in the world. And if you've done something that wasn't right, you might feel guilty about it. You can apologize, own up to it, make it right. But getting over things that you are ashamed of is going to be one of the biggest breakthroughs you can have. And it's one of the cornerstones to be able to implement the energy management compass. So it's easier said than done, right? Know when to recharge, know how to recharge, and do it. And you will achieve the best results in your life. You will always be with abundant energy. You will not deplete yourself. You will not burn out. My promise. Okay, I broke my neck 8 years ago after my accident between the age of 25 and 30. I think I had more than 6 burnouts and so many like depressive episodes, businesses going flatlining. And then I stopped. I had to really reflect. And during that introspection, I came up with this tool. I made it for myself because I needed it. And I'm sharing it with you because I can see how many people are struggling with the fact that we might feel ashamed of certain things. So we do not allow ourselves to do certain things, which brings us in a little cycle that's a downward spiral. And the world around us is not facilitating any of the things that have to do with implementing self-love. And that's what this tool is about. It's something that can help you from a disciplined self-love overcome and navigate any obstacle in life and follow and chase the life of your dreams. Wow. I'm happy I laid that egg with you guys. I don't know if it resonated with you. Share it, comment on it, tell your friends, tell your auntie, tell your uncle. As you know, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. If you share your biggest takeaway of the podcast, this episode or any, on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, tag me in it. And also send me a message of why you would like to receive some coaching. I'm giving away 3 sessions of executive coaching to anybody who does this. So you take your biggest takeaway, you tweet it, gram it, post it, story it, you tag me and send me a message why you would like some coaching. 2 winners are going to be announced at the end of the 4th Energy Management Compass cycle. So that's next week. And I think that's a wrap for today. Remember, you're worth it. Shame isn't worth much. It's holding you back, costing you plenty, and you can overcome it. I think we had a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in. Amor out.